What does it take to become an icon? Is it a single moment, an explosion, a radioactive spider bite, or a lucky accident? For some, maybe, but for others, the journey is a gauntlet. It's a 40-year story of being deconstructed, violated, erased, and psychologically annihilated, just to be reborn. We're not talking about a hero, we're talking about a survivor. This is the story of how Carol Danvers was torn apart so that Captain Marvel could finally be built. Welcome back to Marvel Echoes Resonance. I'm your host, Will, and today we're diving into one of the most complex, messy, but ultimately triumphant legacies in all of comics, the mantle of Captain Marvel. Now, if you're coming from the MCU, you probably know the name Captain Marvel. Well, it belongs to Carol Danvers. But in comics, that's not a simple, clean story of a torch being passed. It's a 40-year saga of struggle, trauma, and rebirth. To really understand Carol, you have to understand that her entire history is a fight to earn the identity that, frankly, was flawed from the second it was created. And it all starts with a contradiction. It's 1977. Marvel wants a signature lead female character to capture the spirit of the era's feminist movement. Stan Lee, in a very, Stan Lee move, co-opts the honorific from Gloria Steinem's groundbreaking Miss magazine, and thus, Miss Marvel was born. In Miss Marvel #1, they make the concept literal. Carol Danvers, who had been a side character in the Marvel books, is now the editor of Woman magazine, a Daily Bugle publication. In her first issue, she's literally arguing with J. Jonah Jameson about women's liberation. But here's the contradiction. The idea was empowerment. The execution, it was the 1970s. Writer Jerry Conway, who penned the first issue, later admitted that he was clueless about how to write a liberated woman. And the costume, a bare midriff, the booty shorts, that was crystal clear product of the male gaze. Her origin was just as flawed. She wasn't a hero of her own making. She was a female counterpart, an adjunct to Marvel. She only got her powers after being caught in an explosion that fused her DNA with his, or so the story went. This is the core problem. She was conceived as a symbol of empowerment, but executed as a derivative, sexualized sidekick. And that flaw, that contradiction, is the spark that defines her entire 40-year journey. It's a story about a character fighting to transcend the very concept she was born from. And before she could be rebuilt, she had to be annihilated. This happens in a 1-2 punch of creative decisions so brutal they are still infamous today. First, you have the Avengers #200 back in 1980. Folks, this is one of the darkest, weirdest, and most reviled stories Marvel ever published. In it, Carol is mind-controlled, abducted to limbo, and non-consensually impregnated by a being named Marcus, who, is himself, and ages rapidly, so he claims to be in love with her. It is, by any definition, a story of rape and gaslighting. But the real trauma of the issue, the echo that resonates, is what the Avengers do. They're confused by the whole thing, and when Carol, still under mind control, agrees to go back to limbo with her abuser, they let her go. Thor opens a portal and just watch her leave. It's a profound abandonment. Her family completely and totally failed her. 1 year later, in Avengers Annual #10, the second blow lands. Carol manages to escape limbo and returns to Earth, confused, traumatized, and alone, and she's immediately ambushed by a new villain, Rogue. Now, if you listen to our deep dive on Rogue in the previous episode, you know the issue from her perspective. It's her origin as a character, but for Carol's side, it's total annihilation. Rogue, who is at this point a villain with the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, doesn't just copy powers, she steals them. She holds on to Carol for too long and permanently drains every last drop of her Kree physiology. Her strength, flight, even her seventh sense, all gone. But worse, she drains her psyche, her memories, her personality, her emotional connections. Carol Danvers is left a blank slate. A comatose woman with no powers, no memory, and, no family to turn to, because they had already abandoned her. The liberated hero of 1977 was, by 1981, completely and totally destroyed. This was ground zero. So how do you come back from that? Well, if you're writer Chris Claremont, who wrote that annual, you find a cosmic solution. Carol awakens from her coma, but she's not Carol, she's a shell, and she wants nothing to do with the Avengers who failed her. Instead, she finds refuge with the X-Men. This new alliance eventually leads her into deep space, where she's captured by a parasitic aliens known as the Brood, who we'll definitely have to cover in the future. The Brood do what they do. They experiment on her, but they push it a little bit too far. In Uncanny X-Men number 164, their experiments, combined with the energy of a white hole, unlock her true potential. Carol Danvers explodes with power. She is reborn as binary. And when I say reborn, I mean it. This isn't Miss Marvel 2.0. This is a god-level being. Her skin turns red, her hair becomes a crown of fire, and she can manipulate the power of a star. Think of it like she didn't just go Super Saiyan, she became the sun. This wasn't just a power-up, it's a thematic escape. She is now infinitely more powerful than what Rogue had stolen. She was invulnerable. She was a cosmic god who in theory could never be hurt again. And so she leaves Earth and all of its trauma behind, joining the space pirates known as the Starjammers. She didn't heal her trauma, she just fled it, becoming so powerful it couldn't touch her. But that's not a real resolution, is it? It's a shield. It's a shield that couldn't last. Years later, her connection to the white hole fades. Her godlike powers drain away, leaving her grounded. She returns to Earth and in 1998 rejoins the Avengers under a new name, Warbird. And this is when the past comes due. Without her cosmic god mode to hide behind, all that CPTSD, all that unresolved trauma from her violation and her annihilation, it all comes flooding back. This era, written by Kurt Busiek, is her most human story. Because she does what so many people do when faced with wounds they can't heal. Well, she spirals. The Warbird arc is a raw, honest depiction of her fall into alcoholism. She's angry, she's paranoid, she lies to her teammates about her faded powers. It culminates to her being suspended from the Avengers. This is her true rock bottom, lower than the coma, lower than the abduction. Because this time, there's no cosmic escape. There's just the hard human work of recovery. Her sponsor, who helps pull her back, Tony Stark, another man defined by his own famous demon in a bottle story. This is the arc that finally gives Carol character. Her 1977 origin gave her powers, the 1981 Annual gave her trauma, but the 1998 Warbird arc, that gave her a soul. It's where she finds her strength, not in the Kree explosion or a white hole, but in her own human will. This is the woman who was finally ready to be Captain Marvel. So that brings us to the modern era. Carol, now sober and having faced her demons, is a senior Avenger, but she's still Miss Marvel. She's still living that original flawed Adjunct label from 1977. But the final step happens in 2012, in Captain Marvel #1, the landmark run by Kelly Sue DeConnick. It's not a big fight that defines this issue, it's a conversation. Carol is sparring with Captain America, and he just lays it bare, tells her, quit being an adjunct, take the mantle. Quit being an adjunct? That's the key. That's the entire 40-year arc. In that moment, she takes the damn name. She isn't the adjunct, she isn't the victim, she isn't the escapee, and she isn't just the addict. She is, for the first time, the protagonist of her own life. And that act, that final step of self-definition, is what sparks the modern legacy. It creates two echoes. The first is real, the Carol Corps, the massive, passionate fan base, mostly women and girls who saw themselves in this flawed, resilient human hero. The second is in universe. It's the beautiful Kamala Khan. Kamala Khan, debuting in 2013, is a Pakistani-American kid from Jersey City, and she's a superfan of, well, Carol Danvers. When Kamala gets her own powers, what name does she take? She doesn't take Captain Marvel, she takes the name Carol discarded, Miss Marvel. You can learn more about that in her episode. This is the perfect ripple. Kamala redeemed the flawed 1977 concept. She becomes the true liberated, upbeat spirit that the original writers had fumbled. The echo in Kamala becomes its own perfect, unique voice. Of course, we can't have this conversation without honoring the pioneer, Monica Rambeau. See, Carol Danvers wasn't even the first woman to be Captain Marvel. That was Monica, who debuted back in 1982. Her origin was her own. No Kree, no Marvel. She was a New Orleans Harbor Patrol lieutenant who got energy powers and, for a time, even led the Avengers. She was the boss. But the main reason for this is Marvel has a trademark on the name Captain Marvel that it has to protect. So the name kept being passed around, and Monica was tragically sidelined, forced to change her name to Photon, then Pulsar, now Spectrum. We'll cover all that in her episode. So when Carol took the name in 2012, it was a massive personal triumph for her. But it's a ripple-aware fact that her victory also unintentionally cast a shadow over the black woman who had forged that legacy as a leader years before. It's messy, it's complicated, and it's human. And that's where Carol stands today. In 2025-2026, she is the premier cosmic hero of Marvel Universe. She has led the Avengers, she has led Alpha Flight as an Earth space defense, and she continues to wrestle with her complex Kree heritage. That's right, she's actually a Kree. But her true status, her real legacy, is that of a survivor. The woman who took 40 years of flawed concepts and traumatic deconstruction and forged it into an icon. So as always, I'll leave you with a question. Do you think Carol's decades of trauma were necessary to make her the hero she is today? Or was she a great hero despite them? A story of resilience that finally overcame the 40-year history of questionable and at times downright terrible writing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks as always for listening to this episode of Marvel Echoes. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you subscribe or follow so you don't miss any of our future episodes. Leaving a like and a review really helps the podcast grow. And please, leave a comment. I want to know what characters or teams you want to see us cover in future episodes. And for more content, including a further deep dive and new reader guides, make sure you visit our website in the links below. Till next time, true believers, make mine Marvel.